It had been raining for hours. Not the kind of rain that washes things clean. This rain was heavy, bloated, clinging. It turned dirt into sludge and filled the air with a wet, sour fog that made it hard to breathe. Trees loomed like silhouettes in a dream, twisted and dripping. There were no birds, no insects, just the sound of your own footsteps. Squelch, squelch, and the rain hammering on leaves like distant whispers. He didn't know how long he'd been walking, just that the road was gone. There had been one, he was sure. Path. Gravel maybe, or packed earth. But now it was just mud and roots, as if the forest had swallowed the trail behind him. He kept going, hoping he'd find the car again, or any sign of the others. But the trees only got denser, the sky darker, and then he saw the cabin. It was small, crooked, half sunken into the earth like it had tried to hide. The roof slanted sharply, covered in moss. The wooden slats were black with rot, the windows smeared with grime. Smoke rose in a thin line from a stone chimney, barely visible through the mist. Someone was inside. He didn't want to knock, didn't want to get closer. But the rain was cold now, not just wet, but cold. It soaked through every layer of clothing, through skin, through muscle, into bone. So he went to the door and knocked. The door opened by itself. The door creaked open with the sound of rotted wood yawning after a long sleep. No lights inside, just darkness layered in thin gray shapes, barely lit by the gloom outside. The air that escaped was thick, not with warmth, but with a smell, something between wet leaves and rotting meat. He hesitated, not because of the smell, but because something inside him knew that once he stepped across the threshold, the woods behind him wouldn't be there anymore. Not the same way, not in the way he could return to. Still, he stepped in. The floor groaned beneath his weight, but not in protest, in recognition. Like the house knew he was there. Rain hissed against the walls, but it sounded farther away now. Like the storm had been pulled back by invisible strings. He shut the door, and darkness swallowed him. No light switches, no lamps, just the fire. Yes, there was a fire now. He hadn't seen it from outside, but a small hearth glowed at the far end of the room, flames barely licking the black stone. It didn't look like wood burned there. The shapes were too round, too long. One had a curve like a rib. He didn't look too closely. The room was full of things. Old ones. A table covered in dusty jars. Shelves warped with age, holding things in murky liquid. A chair with straps on the arms. Chains on the wall where moss grew in patches around the links. And then the sound. Soft. Rhythmic. Breathing. He wasn't alone. The breathing was faint, but it wasn't his. It came from deeper inside, behind a half-open door where the shadows moved slower, like molasses dripping up the walls. He called out, "Hello!" Silence. Then something shifted. A low scraping like skin dragged over wood. The door swung open a few more inches. He should have left. He knew that, but his feet moved without him. Step by step, they carried him to the door. His hand, trembling, reached for the handle. Inside was a bedroom, or at least what remained of one. The bed was a mattress soaked through with black, sunken in the middle like something had laid there too long and rotted into it. Curtains dangled from the ceiling, not the window, and they were wet, sticky, moved without wind. And in the corner a shape, small, curled, breathing. It sounded wrong. Not just the rhythm but the texture of it, like lungs full of water, or dirt, or both. Each inhale came with a wet rattle. Each exhale, a faint whimper. He stepped closer. The thing in the corner moved. Not quickly but with certainty, as if it had been waiting, as if it had heard him coming since he first entered the forest. It sat up, and he saw it. A child, or something that had once been a child. Its skin was gray and pitted, like bark. Its eyes were white and pulsing, and when it opened its mouth to speak, it didn't use words. It spoke in the sound of the rain. He fell backward, scrambling, but the child thing didn't chase him. It only whispered, "You're already in the other room. You just haven't seen the door yet." Then it laid back down, and vanished, like mist pulled into the floorboards. Os Part 4. The basement that wasn't there before. He ran. Out of the room, down the hall, through the front door. But the front door wasn't there anymore. Only a wall. Solid. Seamless. He turned around. The hallway was gone too. Just a narrow staircase now. Leading down. He hadn't seen it before. It hadn't been there. But now it was the only path. The rain outside pounded louder, except it wasn't rain anymore. It sounded like feet. Bare. Dozens of them slapping against wet earth. He took the stairs. Not because he wanted to. Because the house wanted him to. Each step felt like he was walking deeper into someone's throat. The walls were damp. The air smelled like rust and old teeth. Then he reached the bottom. And there was nothing. No floor. No room. Just black water stretching in all directions. It reflected nothing. Not him. Not the walls. Not even the light bulb above, which swayed though there was no wind. He stepped forward. The water didn't splash. It accepted him. With each step, the water crept higher. Up his shins, past his knees to his chest, and still no floor. It was like walking into memory, or forgetting. Then he heard it. Breathing. Not his. The same wet, rattling inhale as before. But this time it was above him. He looked up, and saw himself, floating on the ceiling like a puppet drowned in string. Same clothes. Same face. Except the eyes were missing. Hollow. The mouth hung open, and inside wasn't a tongue, but a key. It dropped. He caught it without thinking. And the moment he did, the basement tore apart. Like a stage collapsing during a scene change. And then, he was back in the hallway. Dry. Alone. But the key was still in his hand. And the stairs now led up. He climbed. The stairs groaned but didn't give way. The walls on either side were lined with peeling wallpaper, patterns that twisted the longer he looked, like vines or veins. Halfway up, the key in his hand grew cold, then warm, then wet. He stopped. The key dripped. Not water, something thicker, slower. He wiped his hand on his shirt. The stain didn't go away. At the top of the stairs stood a single door, painted red, but beneath the paint he could see scratch marks. Long, desperate, human, the kind that came from inside. He fit the key into the lock, turned easily, too easily. The door creaked open, and he stepped into the room. It was almost empty, just four walls, a wooden chair, and in front of the chair, a mirror covered in a black sheet. No dust, no webs. It was as if someone had just been there. The door slammed shut behind him. The key was gone. He didn't check his pocket. He already knew. He sat. He didn't want to. His legs moved without asking him. And he stared at the covered mirror. He didn't want to lift it. But his hands moved anyway. They always did. The sheet came off like skin, slow and sticky. Behind it, nothing. No reflection. Not even the room behind him. Just black. And then, one by one, the reflections returned. But not his. Different versions of him. Slightly off. One had no eyes. One was taller than it should have been. One smiled the whole time. They looked at him. All of them. Then, they moved. He didn't. They raised their hands. He stayed still. They started to climb out. The glass didn't break. It stretched. Like water. Like skin. He backed away. The chair fell. He hit the wall. They were halfway through now. And they were still smiling. Still him. Still not. The door wouldn't open. Not this time. So he turned toward the only escape. The window. But the window showed nothing. Just another mirror. He backed away from the mirror window. No matter where he moved, it showed him, but wrong. Always from behind. Always a second too late. The version of himself in the reflection blinked at the wrong times. Smiled when he didn't. And then it started waving. But he wasn't. He turned. Nothing behind him. He turned back. The reflection was closer now. Like it had taken a step forward, pressing itself against the other side of the glass. The skin was cracking, peeling, revealing something pale and wet underneath. He punched the mirror. It didn't crack, but it laughed. And the sound didn't come from the reflection. It came from inside the walls. from under the floorboards, from behind his eyes. There was a trapdoor in the corner. He hadn't noticed it before, or maybe it hadn't been there, but it was open now, gaping, like a mouth waiting for something soft. He didn't want to go down, but staying wasn't an option. The other him was almost through. 1 foot out now, a grin too wide for a human mouth. He dropped into the trapdoor. Darkness swallowed him whole. The fall was short, but the landing hurt. Damp earth, roots, a tunnel that stretched ahead like the throat of a sleeping god. He crawled. The soil pulsed around him. Worms writhed in the walls, spelling out things he didn't want to read. One word kept repeating, return. He crawled faster. Behind him something followed, clicking, dragging, breathing. He reached another hatch, wooden, carved with a symbol, a spiral inside a screaming mouth. He opened it and fell again, this time into kitchen, old, dusty. Candlelight flickered even though there were no candles. The table was set for him, and across the table sat the woman, the one from the cabin, only older, more decayed. Her eyes were gone, but she still looked at him. "You took the wrong door," she said, voice like rain on glass. He opened his mouth, but she raised a hand. "You left the woods," she continued. "But the woods didn't leave you." From the ceiling, bones began to fall. Thin, hollow, bird-like. Each one landed with a sound like a scream choked underwater. "Do you remember now?" she asked. He didn't answer, because he did, and he wished he didn't. He stood, but the floor did not feel like wood anymore. Pulsed soft, almost like flesh, a membrane beneath a thin illusion of planks. Each step left an imprint that didn't fade. The woman across the table began to hum, low, monotone, a lullaby made from dead languages. The house was changing again. The walls peeled away like wet wallpaper, revealing pulsing root veins beneath. The kitchen bled. Not metaphorically. Dark fluid trickled from the cabinets. The fridge breathed in shallow, wheezing spasms. Every drawer and door shook like something inside wanted out. Then came the whisper. Behind the curtain. He didn't want to, but his legs moved. There was no curtain before, but now one hung in the corner, red and rotting, dripping with mildew and moths. He reached for it. The woman screamed, not in fear, in rage. "Don't." He pulled it anyway. Behind the curtain was a window, but not to the outside. It was to another room, same as the one he stood in, but empty, except for the thing. It looked like him, but tall, thin, joints bent wrong, mouth always open. It stared into the mirror from the other side, waiting, watching, waiting for him to look. He closed the curtain. The scream stopped. The kitchen was empty now, the table bare. No woman, no blood, just a chair rocking slowly backward, and then forward, and backward again. He turned. There was a hallway now, lit by dim lights that buzzed like dying flies. He stepped into it. Every picture frame on the wall showed him. Different versions. Bleeding, burning, drowned, screaming. One picture was moving, like a looped video. It showed him staring at a door, reaching for it, opening it, and the figure behind that door. Not human. Long arms, no face, skin like melted wax. He reached the end of the hallway, the same door as the one in the frame. He didn't want to open it, but the watch ticked louder. The one he had chosen. Tick, 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 backwards, always backwards. He put his hand on the knob. Behind him, the rocking chair stopped. The hallway lights died, one by one, from the far end, coming closer. Click, 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 until it was just him, and the door, and the dark. He turned the knob. It was wet, not with water, something thicker, warmer. Blood? No, older than that, like the sweat of something ancient, coiled behind the door. The door opened inward with a sigh. The room beyond was massive. Impossible for a cabin this small. No ceiling, no corners, just space. Black, infinite, swirling with fog that smelled like mildew and bone marrow. In the center stood a well. Stone. Cracked. Chains hung from the lip like vines, swaying with a wind that came from inside it. He stepped closer. The ticking in his head stopped. Silence. Utter, full silence. So deep it rang. He looked into the well. No water. Just a face. His own. Dead. Mouth stitched shut. Eyes gone. Skin stretched like paper over a skull. And the stitched mouth began to rip. Thread by thread. A whisper poured out. Don't let it wear you. He staggered back. The chains rattled. Something was climbing up. He turned to run. But the door was gone. Only wall now. Slick and pulsing. The air pressed in like damp cloth. The well screamed. Not with sound, with memory. Visions slammed into his mind. A child crying in a thunderstorm. Locked in a closet. A man bleeding out on a bathroom floor, whispering apologies to no one. A mirror cracking as something on the wrong side smiled first. He dropped to his knees. The ticking started again. Only now it wasn't in his head. It was in the walls. And it was counting down. Not up. Not time. A limit. Something would arrive when it reached 0. He crawled toward the far wall. There was a hole. Small. Just large enough to slip through. He didn't think. He didn't breathe. He just crawled. Through muck. Through bile. Through darkness that tasted him. When he emerged, it was daylight, but not the same kind. The sky was purple-gray. The trees were tall, too tall, bending inward like they were watching. The cabin was gone. No trace. Only footprints behind him. His own. And another set. Twice the size. Pointed toes. No heel. Bare. He wasn't alone. And whatever had followed him was still behind. Smiling.